Hi, this is Rachel Wright here with Verdant Strategies and a 420 CPA. Today I'm here with Leah Heise. How are you today, Leah?
I'm great. How are you today?
Good, good. We're here at the Women Grow Conference. We're just chatting over coffee, sharing some fun stories.
Yep, little coffee talk.
Little coffee talk. So I know we have a panel coming up. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of prepping for our panel. We're cheating here. We're cheating.
It's multitasking.
Multitasking, exactly. We're prepping for our panel right now while we're on camera with you. But how have you enjoyed Women Grow so far?
So far, I think it's been incredibly inspirational. I love hearing the stories of women leaders in the industry, their different perspectives, the struggles they've gone to be successful in their own endeavors, and also what they're continuing to put forward day by day to continue to move forward in this industry, which can be tough.
It's a tough industry for sure.
It is.
No matter what angle you're in.
Absolutely.
Right. And so you are, tell me what you do.
So I'm consulting. I've been in cannabis for 10 years. I've had 4 exits so far. I've had 2 sales and 2 public exits. So I have been blessed to be very successful so far in this industry. And right now I'm consulting with companies to become more efficient, to do governance strategies for boards, to help people get to exit. What do the data rooms look like? What should you be doing to prepare yourself? And what does that exit look like? For some of these companies, it's a long game. They really want to stay in this forever. And the goal is to create a sustainable business that maybe you're ESOPing and becoming employee owned, and really being benefit corps versus just racing to the exit as I've kind of done. So it's nice to see these perspectives, different perspectives through my clients' worldviews. So it's fun.
Yeah, I guess ultimately people have to start with the end game in mind. Always. And that's one of the first questions that I try to ask. I'm sure that's one of the first questions you have to ask, right? Yeah.
And it will change and pivot. And as things become, more difficult, people tend to want to back out, or, cannabis is very challenging with regulations and taxes and things like that. So I find when people hit that 3-year mark in markets, they start to tend to think about maybe it's time for me to sell or merge or do something to get some liquidity for themselves.
For sure. And these are typically founders, right? And so what's their next move? What are options?
So, there's a couple of options, right? They could become, they could get acquired, they could merge, or they could just move to the board, stop running the day-to-day. Instead of being in their business, they could kind of be on top of their business. And then figuring out maybe a divestiture strategy so that they can get some money back into their pockets. But cannabis is hard right now. There's not a lot of venture capital. I do predict we'll see more consolidation as these markets mature and licenses start to go away. You're certainly seeing that in California.
For sure. Yeah.
I think I was looking at a slide the other day, and it's like, it was more than 50% of the licenses are gone in California.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I saw it right after COVID. COVID obviously was a boon for most of the cannabis industry, and particularly in my neck of the woods in California, COVID was great.
Sure.
And people weren't really planning for the other side of COVID. And so after the, people did get PPP loans, they, believe it or not, they got ERC checks, huge ERC checks. Yeah. And, after that's run out, you're left with having to run a business, right? And that's the reality of it. So, so things have definitely constricted for sure, price compression, everything like that. And so now you actually have to run a business.
And the taxes are so high in California.
Yes. Yeah. It's actually the state and local taxes that are the worst. 280E, to be honest with you, is not as much of a problem as people think. That's my experience. And that's my experience taking clients through successful audits. So, it's just not as black and white as people would think 280E. I really think, especially in California, it's the state and local taxes that are killing people.
And their licensing fees are insane.
Yeah. like the biggest problem right now is, forgive me, but the CDTFA is a very difficult agency to work with. So, and their taxes are excruciating, so yeah. So what do you do on the other side of that? Right. And, and you mentioned merging, and when you merge, is there actually any compensation on the other side of that? Generally not. It's usually stock.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, it's especially in these times, right? It's stock. I don't find a lot of people being interested in stock. And then some of the companies that I'm working with that are considering exploring a merger path, maybe they have good relationships with a supplier or somebody who has a different supply chain that they can merge with. The culture clashes.
Totally.
In terms of maybe one company is very much employee focused and another company is not. If they're not aligned, you're going to have a lot of problems with that integration of that merger.
Sure.
So you have to look at what do you want to do? What do you want to be at the end of the day? And if you truly are a founder that's committed to the culture of your company, the impact that your company is making on the planet, then you have got to vet those partners very, very, very carefully. And all of those legal agreements that go into the merger have to take all of that stuff into consideration.
For sure. I mean, I think I'd say governance, you mentioned, is one of the biggest issues. Do you want to talk about that? Isn't that funny?
It's there's a surprising lack of understanding in terms of governance. Even you'll go into meetings, for example, I'll go into a meeting and do an interactive board session with boards that have been in existence for over 10 years, perhaps, and have to remind them what the fiduciary duties they owe to the company are, what a conflict of interest is. Very basic, just kind of board things. This is how you function. This is what your common law is in your state. This is what your bylaws say. Like, have you read your bylaws recently? This is how you
refreshed your bylaws.
Right. Have you amended your bylaws? This is how you amend your bylaws. It's like in cannabis, we rush to revenue.
Right.
And I find this both on the board governance side, governance generally, and on just the structure of your companies, the cost centers. We run to revenue so fast that we aren't setting up our cost centers appropriately. So your HR, your compliance, your legal, your finance, you skimp on all of that in a rush to get to revenue. And then at some point it's going to break.
It does.
You need a foundation.
Yep.
And so now I'm going back in and trying to help people fix the foundations that they should have built. And I promise you, and I'm sure you know, it is harder to build it once it's broken.
Right.
And you have 1,500 employees nationwide than it is if you just go a little bit slower and build it as it should be built going along.
Right. Yeah, you'd be surprised. I also see a lot of kind of broken companies, and maybe they don't have shareholder agreements, even executed shareholder agreements, in the smaller companies. Not a true controller or CFO if they're big enough for that. HR is, an admin person, so.
Exactly. An admin person overseeing 300 employees.
Right.
You cannot have one HR person overseeing 300 employees. It's impossible.
No. Or even 10 or 100. I don't, even the smaller companies.
I like 50.
Yeah.
50 with some good tools, you can run fairly lean on that. But outside of that, I mean, it's all you're doing is living in that kind of day-to-day putting out fires.
Right.
Versus being able to strategically say, this is how we're going to grow our organization. This is how we're going to constantly evolve organizational and sort of that organizational design theory. Here's how we're going to constantly evolve. This is how we're going to create career paths for our employees. Right. You don't have time to do that if all you're doing is building employee files and onboarding, offboarding, and recruiting. And turnover is so high in this industry.
Burnout.
Oh, so high.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, definitely. So building a professional staff, respecting, I think it's like ROI. People need to realize their ROI on building professional staff that's adequate to handle your growth. And so that is definitely key too. Yeah. So awesome. Well, we have to get to our panel. We have totally prepped for our panel now. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is good.
Now I don't even have to practice. I've already practiced. So Leah, where do we find you online? How do people get a hold of you? Yeah.
You can find me on LinkedIn at leah.heise. I'm also on www.wolfmeyer.com. Reach out anytime.
Yeah.
Would love to talk.
Awesome. Finally, we got an interview in. Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, there you have it. Rachel Wright here at Women Grow Conference in Maryland, right across from DC, and awesome women's conference. So everybody should attend.
Yes.
Get onto the Women Grow website and look for any upcoming events. Definitely need some support. We need some more ladies and women participating in the cannabis industry as leaders. So come on down.
And all of you allies.
That's right.